Hi, hello. Welcome to another episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is April the 6th, 2023. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits, with high hopes. As for me, I'm doing, let's start off and say well, but I will say mixed bag for a Thursday. Obviously, we're coming back at it. Starting off, the episode sets. I don't know what you want to call this. What I do, like the 5 string that I do every week. I just gotta say, sometimes it's just a weird one. I would say today's has kind of been a little bit of a just a mushy day, a weird day, but overall good, overall fine. Like I said, this week's been fine. I will say I'm slowly but surely getting into my broke phase again, which I love. Poverty is great, but that's okay. As long as we're here, as long as we're making it, life's a survival mode. You're just here until you get knocked out. But no, I would say there's just a mix of good news and bad news. This episode definitely is encapsulating the balance there. I feel like I'm trying to strike. But we're not gonna get all the way into it. Obviously, if you're new to the podcast, hi, hello, how you doing? I never do good like intros to what we're doing for any new people. You kind of just get thrown in, and for that I'm sorry. But hey, that's just my podcasting style. But man, it's just weird, and it's one of those where like the news is getting me in a lot of ways today, where I was just like, oh yeah, it was such a high, and then like it's just ending on such a low note. And I just go, man, I hate this shit. I hate looking into the abyss like this. And I always tell people, hey, you should take breaks when you can, and get some air. Take 5. It's okay. Ignorance is definitely bliss, and that's okay. Sometimes you gotta hit a little nirvana to keep going through it. But for me, especially ever since I got into this podcast, because I feel like this was already a budding thing for me before I got asked, do you want to make a podcast, Isaiah? And it was just the idea that I started consuming so much content that way with podcasts that I knew that once I got to news, that this was just going to be like a start again. And I really had been on and off with it since 2016. Things had happened. Obviously, I learned things in school with history, yada, yada, yada. It all kind of culminated in current events for me in high school. And I started thinking about things a little bit differently, especially like, senior year, yada, yada, yada. But I mean, these are just gaps I'm putting in. I'm putting you from 2009 to 2016 and then to 2019, I guess, when it really started getting into podcasts in 2020. I don't know. Life's a soup. But anyway, needless to say, I find that ever since I got into it like hard, like, oh, okay, the internet's all around me. Like, I have no excuse. I can always look up news when I want. Like, news is here. I can talk about it. I can think about it. I'm enthralled by it just like I am with history or any kind of, I don't know, any other hobby I do. Like, it's just there. So I can't look away, I feel like. It's hard for me not to just put it down. Like, even when I end an episode, I think about all the ways I fucked up the episode, how this could be better and tighter and blah, 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 blah. But I always just realize there's always going to be another beat, Isaiah. Like, and no one tells it perfect. And even if they do, they usually wind up injecting some kind of spin anyway. So no one's perfect. There are other people out there I know that are like me, and I appreciate it. And if you're one of those who are listening, thank you. Because I know you're giving me a lot of slack and a lot of leeway here, and you just want to hear me talk about this shit because you're maybe a little bit like me. And I thank you for being you. So, but yeah, I'm kind of rambling and ranting. But anyway, is there food? I normally do a food corner. Let's add some levity. Let's go ahead and do that. I don't think I ate anything crazy this week. I had some general. I think no. Yeah, I had some General Tso's chicken. I'm recycling here from my Patreon. I'm sorry, Newsies. I'm leaking a little bit. I had some General Tso's chicken. That was probably the most fire thing I ate all week. Still thinking about it. I want to like reorder that tomorrow. But other than that, I've just been eating home meals. Nothing too crazy. The old rice and beef bowl. And then I made some spaghetti, or not spaghetti, I'm sorry, pasta, some elbow mac, and salad. I will say I get roasted because instead of garlic bread, I will just do normal bread with butter, and then I will also do a bagel with cream cheese. I don't know why, but I just don't like buying like processed garlic bread, and I'm too lazy to make garlic bread, even though I know it's not hard. So that's where I land there. So there's a little quirky food thing. Is there anything else I got? Nope. I ate some sour Skittles today, so we ate something. And some peanuts. I made some peanuts too. We've been grazing. I've not been in a food mood. I've kind of like corked it off. I might eat after this, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. It won't be anything cool. Sorry. But if, I might tell you about it tomorrow. Who knows? So stay tuned. Gosh, this has been a terrible intro. This has been a terrible food corner. The vibes are fucked, and I'm sorry for that. But I'm going to try to be as corrective as I can and take my pre-break. That's right. I feel like I deserve a little treat. Fuck the system. Also, I decided that I was going to use the rest of my wine. Felt like it was worthy of it. We got a red. I'm a red guy. I don't do any whites. Just turns my wine, obviously. Also, I heard this from like a random like cooking thing, cooking food podcast, whatever. But if you fuck with cheap wines, apparently a little hack that I do is you put in ice cubes in your shitty wine and it makes it taste a little better. Something about like oxidation of the ice and melting or whatever. Plus it cools it, which is kind of neat. Kind of get a little cool thing. Obviously it looks corny as hell. It's as bad as like putting ice in your beer. So I'm not telling you to do it to be cool. This is obviously more moments of vulnerability for me. But I will say I do it from time to time and I don't hate it. Granted, obviously if you're buying like good shit that matters, probably shouldn't take my advice there. All right. Now that I'm a little bit more lubricated, we can get into some news, which I'm probably not going to do a good job with, but I mean, do I ever? From the BBC, NATO's border with Russia doubles as Finland joins. So this, some might say, is a little bit of a long time coming, though it's been a bit of a sprint since the invasion started last year with, Ukraine, with Russia and Ukraine. Now, in a lot of ways, and I'm just going to do some summarizing here, but in a lot of ways, people are saying like, Vladimir Putin, it's kind of a cruel irony that this happened, right? Like he went to this war. He initially had said, oh, it's about the denazification of Ukraine. And then he went on to further say, which I feel is more of the point, that was a valid defense, at least from when I was taking on this information. It was like NATO has been expanding on our borders. It has been a nonstop issue for us, and it's not getting any better. And we see Ukraine as kind of a big inflection or like last kind of stand. And if we didn't do anything here, then they would for sure be in our backyard. And so now people are saying, like, Anthony Blinken's like, it's kind of, this is a bit of the silver lining that, Finland is now joining. Also to be added that it was initially like Finland and Sweden both got together at the same time and said, hey, we actually do want to be in NATO. We really do want to be in NATO. Shit's getting really kinetic here. Let's join up. Let's join the good old gang. But with Finland alone, I think it more than doubles the border now. I'm looking at a map here. And from the BBC, they have the NATO's European expansion since 1949, which is something I kind of want to add to just at least say, and I don't even feel like I'm playing devil's advocate here. I'm just looking at situations. Like with NATO, they've been more of a, like, it's a defensive thing. This is a defensive alliance, and that's something I believed growing up. If you told me what NATO was, if I read about it in school, that's how I read it. That's how I interpreted it. Like, sure. And in a lot of ways, how I view it, it's like, yeah, I've been living in this imperial core naturally from our own POV. We are a Western society. You're only going to get told the good things that NATO does, and even the bad things that NATO does, they're going to get spun in a way that's like, oh yeah, we were the good guys. We were like fighting communism or whatever. But in a lot of ways, looking at it from like world POVs, how I've heard it, it just doesn't look like that. It looks like NATO is a big bully situation. So my stance on NATO has changed a lot over the years. That being said, what Vladimir Putin did, what Russia has done with the war that they started, it made their situation worse. So in a lot of ways, the haters were right. Like, you could say the haters, if you will, were right. Like, you gave the West a dub on that. You gave NATO the exact advertising they needed, that you guys were as bad as they said you were. You know, like, so at the end of the day, it, to me, you know, the stance is definitely, this is just desserts. Like, you made this push to try to secure your borders. You didn't have to make it, though. I can say, yes, inevitably, probably, you know, there is a world where NATO does get to Ukraine eventually, and instead of inevitably, you know, maybe it isn't, but we'll never know now. You know, the die got cast. That's Putin's L here. So I agree with the narrative on that. But that being said, I think this is just one of those things where just NATO kind of gets away with it on it. You know, they get to look like the good guy. They are the good guy here. That's how history's going to tell it for sure. In terms of Sweden, though, I think they are going to also join. It's just a matter, we've talked about it a little bit on the pod with Turkey. They have strongly said, no, we aren't feeling them. I talked about the situation where, like, one of their members of government, like, burned a Quran, and that was, like, an issue. But also it's them funding Kurdish opposition to, like, stuff going on in, I believe, in Syria, something like that. So Turkey's like, nah, we don't fuck with them. They're not cool. They're going to have to kind of, you know, curry our favor. They're going to have to do more. And also Hungary is also hasn't approved either, and they're doing it for their own reasons. So essentially they're probably just going to get, you know, what they want in a way, and eventually Sweden will follow suit. NATO will just get bigger. And I mean, it is what it is. Me talking shit about NATO, I feel like, doesn't really change anything. It is what it is. It's just like talking shit about any superpower, in my opinion. I feel this way about any of these big alliances, because they usually just aren't doing good. At least they are doing good on paper, but they don't really wind up doing good for, I don't know, anyone but the, well, I guess for the superpowers that they're representing. So I guess at the end of the day, I shouldn't complain. I should just shut the fuck up. Like, all right, I'm living here, all right? I'm doing fine. I know that's what they say, right? They're like, well, if you don't like it, leave. Like, I can't help it, bro. I got this fucking amendment and let me talk shit. I just can't help myself. And I got the internet. This is crazy. This is crazy. Let's move along. From CNN, let's do a Trump update. Now that he is going through, you know, the indictment that happened on Tuesday, he came in, he pled not guilty to 34 felony charges. There's a couple of live tickers up, I'm sure, that you can find and talk about. Though I gotta say, this is definitely going to wind up to be a slow burn. And I'm not surprised by that. I mean, it is a typical tactic of the Trump legal team to delay, to stall, to fight, for dismissal. And in this situation, because there's a lot of nuances in what's going on and how Alvin Bragg has, you know, set up this thing, you know, his case, there's definitely a, like, hey, we got to check this out the door, because we got to see if you're going to be okay for that, which is going to take probably most of the year just to even figure out if this is going to make it and continue to trial. So we get a little bit more of these little highlights. Donald Trump pled not guilty to 34 felony charges of falsifying business records in a historic and unprecedented court appearance in Manhattan Tuesday. Prosecutors allege Trump sought to undermine the integrity of the 2016 election through a hush money scheme with payments made to women who claimed they had extramarital affairs with Trump. Trump, who has denied all wrongdoing and the affairs, is the first current or former president in the United States history, in the U.S. history, to face criminal charges. In his first post-arraignment remarks, he railed against the Manhattan DA and charges during remarks in Florida. So essentially, like right after, he didn't say much, but not guilty. He was very quiet, very meek, very mild. And he just skedaddled, went back home to Florida, and then just talked his good shit. Saying, hey, this is like a witch hunt. They're out to get me. And it's also weird, too, because a lot of people are wondering, well, why no gag order? Well, one, I mean, how are you going to tell the former president to shut the fuck up? How are you going to tell Donald Trump to really... Like, he'll find a way to fucking talk his shit. Also, I think the judge, even though he has been a target of harassment, and I think, like, Donald Trump Jr. posted a picture of his daughter or some shit. Like, it's weird, dude. It's cringe fucking behavior that these guys are already up to. But him, Alvin Bragg, his legal team... They've all been subject of harassment already at the jump. Even Donald Trump has posted like memes of like him with a baseball bat next to like Alvin Bragg's picture. It's all kind of funky, funny shit. He's called him like an animal. He's called him a criminal. All kinds of little, little doggy whistles, if you know what I mean. So already the shit is messy, but I would expect nothing less from our guy Trump. Now, in terms of the story or the case of, like, what he's trying to do, Alvin Bragg, like, what is the case he's trying to set up? Essentially, he's saying, hey, this hush money that Stormy Jones... Also, I believed I said it wrong, that what the event was that Stormy Daniels and Trump met. I think it was a golfing event, like a celebrity golf event. That was the first time they met. How cute. What a meet cute. But, essentially, the hush money was... given by Michael Cohen, who was at the time legal representation for Trump, part of it. Then, over time, Michael Cohen was then reimbursed through a series of payments that would exceed a campaign donation. And it's like, well, why bring up a campaign donation? Because that's important to the case. That he was given these payments to essentially... like quiet the whole situation. That's what hush money is, of course, right? And I hear a lot of people like, well, that's what a person does with their money is up to them. Like, why is this even a thing? And it's like, what two people do between each other, that's a contract. That's their own thing. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, this was done, especially the case narrative by Alvin Bragg. This was done to make an election smoother, which you are not allowed to do. You're not allowed to use campaign money, any kind of money, to affect a campaign in that way. It's illegal. It's one of those things that can kind of seem like a minor thing, and especially in terms of, you're talking about like these business errors and stuff that he committed, these, this kind of fraud. It's supposed to be just a misdemeanor, but they're saying you did it I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not saying this shit correctly, but in the situation, it just winds up stacking into a felony. That is what they are trying to do. Now, whether or not that's going to be successful, we'll see, because essentially he's playing around with something that was a federal case between Cohen, and he's saying, hey, that's something that affected the state of New York. People in New York were affected by this. They were voting constituents for this election. Donald Trump is a person who used to live here. Yada. So, like, this is something that affects the state. We should have a say in trying to convict him in the situation, so that's what we're trying to do. And they're saying that we should have an ability to convict him for this felony charge. Now, that being said, like I said, the Trump strategy is to delay, to fight for dismissal, which is, like I said, there's a chance that they could get that. So we'll see by the end of the year if this is still even in the air. Also, mind you, this is only one of a few criminal cases, because we've talked about, like I said, I try not to talk about Trump unless it is a criminal thing. Unless we are talking about something that potentially he's facing jail time or money time, something like that. So, some people are like, well, should this even be tried? I say that this is a part of the process of justice. It's also debated, like, do you even have the statute of limitations on your side here? Which Bragg's team has said, hey, we do, because we weren't able to try him while he was president. We couldn't do that, so we had to wait until after. Not to mention he left the state, so like we should have enough time. There should be like a 5-year pause. We should have the time to work with that. So I mean, we'll see if any of this holds up there. Like I said, there's also the situation with Georgia where he was trying to potentially tamper votes. There's also the Mar-a-Lago thing with all the documents. There's also January 6th. So granted, those haven't been put up yet, but like I just told you, with the timeline that we're vaguely talking about here with just this alone, that's going to take until 2024. He's going to be probably at the height of the election cycle by the time he's actually in court doing the shit, like running through the paces of actual court trial, if it gets there. So I don't know. We'll see. Also, there's one thing I want to mention before I move off of this, is that it's not just Stormy Daniels' hush money that's also being accounted here. There's also a story with Karen McDougal, who I believe is an American model and actress and a Playboy bunny. She had what is said to be a 9-month-long affair with Donald Trump. I'm picking up some of this from Wikipedia. But essentially, she was a part of a catch and kill story. So either it was set up via Michael Cohen or someone on the team that teamed up with like the National Inquiry, like higher ups or whatever. And they said, hey, you track down this and get this exclusive story, aka you bribe this lady, this person, they tell their story, whatever, you hear it, what the fuck ever. This story never gets out, but they can never tell it to anyone else because they've signed this agreement. It's something way more ironclad than an NDA, because potentially this they said, hey, you signed to us, so only tell your story to us. So there's way more potential pressure to not tell your story. But now, obviously, now that it's hitting a fan, I think maybe she might be talking a little bit more. I'm not sure. I haven't researched too much on her. There's also another situation of a Trump bellhop that made the story, and I'm saying he made the story up because it's not been proven, because I think the inquiry itself, after they did a catch and kill on this person, they deemed that this story was bullshit anyway, and they just said, whatever. We weren't going to talk about this anyway because it's literally bullshit. It made us look stupid. But he said that Trump had an illegitimate son and that was his story that he was trying to tell. But regardless of whether or not you believe that any of these stories, from Stormy to this bellhop, they were all paid for. There's a payment to cover that up. Why? So that this man could get through an election. And you can say, well, he paid for it because it is known. He has at least admitted at one point to have said, yeah, I did pay this and this off. Like, whatever, fine. But he says, because in defense of my family. It's not about whether or not it happened or didn't happen. Melania, she doesn't need to hear about this. My family, my children don't need to hear about this. Sure, what the fuck ever, man. But anyway, that's more or less the case. That's more or less the situation as I can tell it to the best of my fucking ability. Whew. We can move along. Let's talk about a little bit of good news, and I'm realizing this is actually really the only good news, because like the Trump getting indicted doesn't feel like it. It feels good for like a hot rush of a second, I think, if you're rooting for this motherfucker's downfall, because you just want to see some goddamn justice. But you know, there's a high capability that this guy is high likelihood this guy's not seeing any justice. This dude's been doing crime for he's part of a goddamn family of crime as far as I'm concerned. Allegedly, whatever. Like, there's no dub in seeing this guy maybe hop, skip, and jump in and out of courts. Like, but that being said, this to me is a dub, and I want to talk about it. I want to focus about it, and I'm gonna bonus me. I'm gonna take another treat break. Obviously, this is a long episode. I'm sorry. Trust me, I'm cooking myself in the production of just making it. Literally. But it's like that sometimes. That's why I do it. All right. All right, Arun. All right. From the Associated Press, Democrats win. Democrats' choice wins key Wisconsin Supreme Court race. Whatever. I don't like that headline. Sometimes I just don't like the headline, guys and gals and bees. But a Democratic-backed Milwaukee judge won the high stakes Wisconsin Supreme Court race Tuesday, ensuring liberals will take over majority control of the court for the first time in 15 years, with the fate of the state's abortion ban on the line. Now, I gotta say, I randomly was listening to, well, not randomly, I listened to this daily. I listened to the Daily, for the exception of the weekends. I don't listen to the Sunday Read. But they did a cover on the whole situation at hand. And honestly, despite that I'm doing all this shit, I'm just not politically plugged in. You know, at the end of the day, I'm just not poli-sci guy. I'm just a guy. I'm really just a cardboard guy, really. But I had no idea. I had heard a little bit about Wisconsin, and then I wasn't too surprised that they were very Republican. It's a very conservative state, hard locked. They got it down just deep. It's a deep red. But I had always heard from a friend that Madison was one of those little bastions. And as an Ohioan, I get that there's a few of those there, a few of those here. And there was this big, Supreme Court situation that I heard from the Daily between Janet Prstasiewicz. I'm already butchering her name, and I tried to remember this and get it right, but Prstasiewicz. That's what we're gonna try. That's what we're gonna say. And it was between Prstasiewicz and former Justice Dan Kelly. Now Dan Kelly is a known Republican, though according to him, let him tell it this whole campaign, he said, hey, look at it this way. I'm just vying to be a judge now. You don't have to worry about my past, okay? Because when I become a judge, I'm going to become a true arbiter. Which, don't get me wrong, 4th grade social studies Isaiah would have ate that up, because that's how you're supposed to be as a judge, right? You're supposed to be this arbiter of justice. When I hear what the Supreme Court's supposed to be, I'm not supposed to think about, are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? You're supposed to shoot straight. You're supposed to aim for the law. That is why you have this kind of process at a federal level and a state level. And it almost would seem refreshing if that was what it was. But this person can say that because he is in such a strong majority situation. He has all the juice. He just has to show up, according to him. Even though this guy's kind of a known loser. I hate to say it. I hate to bring my inner Trumpian out, but this guy's he's not a winner. He's not a winner, folks. He doesn't win. He's lost before. He's going to lose again. Spoiler alert. He doesn't win. He didn't win. But he tried to run, I guess, as clean as a campaign as he could. But I will tell you what, anytime they brought up his past, it was cooking himself. He's like, so you were part of a legal team, for Trump. You were part of these women's right for life, aka you definitely are anti-abortion. That's not going to change. So aka you are everything that the Republicans' values represent. That's what you are. Now, Prstasiewicz essentially leaned into what it was. She's like, hey, if I get in, we're going to become a 4-3 majority. We will flip everything. I'm going to be trying to change abortion. I'm going to try to fix these maps, because gerrymandering, I hate gerrymandering. Every time I think about gerrymandering, my blood boils, because to me, that is something at a very local, state level in America that is so fucking frustrating, that it doesn't matter that that there are people across your whole state that vibe with what you're saying and thinking that oh yeah, we should all get these kind of rights, these kind of things this is unassailable. And I totally agree with the mantra that yeah, voting at the big level for the primary shit, it can feel good, but it's not as effective as voting locally, as voting for your state shit. Like when I finally participated that, I felt it a little bit more. Granted, it sucked to like, still see losses, but you go back and that's why I get mad because of Jerry fucking mandering of just saying, hey, we're going to slice this and this and this and that up. So even though this is like a Democratic area, you're not going to have that many points when it comes down to the whole electoral voting system. And you just get cooked every year after year. And then not to mention, people get so defeated, they give up. And it's just, you have either like two Republicans running against each other or just a person running unopposed. And it's just so sad to see. But in this situation, Prasasiewicz stepped up, did the duty. There was a lot of money put into this campaign by both sides. And leading up to it, she had a slight lead, and it held. And I was so stoked to hear that. I was like I said, going back to my friend, I mentioned it to them. And they're like, oh, shit, I didn't even know about it. Like, I didn't know that was, like, this big thing was happening today. And I was like, yeah, it's happening today. And they were already talking about how, like, it was hard to even, like, find the time to vote. Not to mention, like, there's no easy way to do it because these people lock down the vote. Once they get it, they change all the little laws. And I see it happening here. They already whisper and talk about it. They don't want it to be an easy way to vote. They want it to be as hard as possible because they know the people who have all the time in the world to vote are usually going to vote in their favor. And any of the people who are struggling to make it, who would actually love to see a change, they're too busy working in their 9-to-5 job or 9 to whatever fucking job or third shift job. And either way, you can't find the time. You just can't find the time to vote. And they'd be like, heaven forbid you do an absentee ballot because that's what voter fraud is. Shit's wild. But let's see here or there. Like I said, this is a dub situation. We're wooing. We're happy. That being said, there's a dark lining to this silver lining that I've heard. Like I said, this is already a supercharged situation where it's already it's already dominated by Republicans. They just get to do what they want. So in an interview, one of these politicians were already like, hey, if she wins, we'll just impeach her. Yeah, we'll just do that. It's like, how? And I just to say that, to be so bold. But these they have the juice. When you have the juice like this in politics, you get to flex like that, which is gonna lead to the rest of what we're gonna talk about here. But that is the one thing I'm worried about. I hope that doesn't come to pass, but there's totally a chance they're gonna do it. And if so, then I'm gonna fucking cover it. And you'll probably hear more of this fucking just tired Isaiah mood energy. But like I said, I've talked about the good news, but sadly I got to drag us into some bad news. Once again from the Associated Press, North Carolina lawmaker signals party switch with big impact. Spoiler alert, this Benedict Arnold done switched up. She done did it. Let's see. It is Representative Tricia Cotham of Mecklenburg County. She came in as a Democrat. I kind of would say that she's maybe more moderate, but at least according to her record that kind of got her here, she was very at least supportive of like abortion rights, of LGBTQIA plus all that. Like she was down to clown. She seemed down to party. But the next thing you know, she's over here like, they're bullying me. The party wants me to like vote a line and I'm just like not gonna do it. And it's like, next thing you know, she's like surrounded by the like super majority cabal that is these Republicans. And she's saying she's switching sides. And really, this is a nothing burger story, technically. That's why it hasn't gotten too many rounds, honestly. But to me, it is once again showing the sign of the fucking times. These people already have the ability to outvote their Democratic governor, who is Ray Cooper. He's already against the ropes, but now it's a sure fucking thing. They only had that one seat. Like, once again, they already had it. Like, I don't even, like I said, there's no even point of having this conversation. It's just weird that you switched. Like it's weird that you switched up, bro. It's kind of cringe. But yeah, I mean, good for her. She swapped bullies. So lame. It's so corny to me. But yeah, I mean, hey, good for her. This is her Kirsten Cinema, and this is a reminder to me, a showing to me, a lot of what I've seen this year has shown me a little bit of how certain states kind of conduct themselves. Like we did a little bit of LA at the top of the year. Now I'm seeing North Carolina. I'm going to talk. We've also talked about Florida a good amount. Florida's really interesting, obviously, because they have the Disney attachment and that whole thing, right? So, like I said, at the end of the day, I post these things obviously to try to do my damnedest to be like the greats I see, and I want to be like them. That's why I got into this sphere. But I do like learning. I do. This is a thing that's helped me pursue this and track these things down and put more effort into it. And I might not have learned much at the end of the day, but I've learned something, god damn it. So I do find this shit interesting. I find myself just caught up in it. Like this is my Super Bowl now. Like, you know what I mean? It's these fucking courthouses, it's these fucking government buildings. I live for this shit now. It's cringe. Yeah, I'm the cringe one. The abyss is staring back at me and calling me lame. And they're right. I don't know if there's going to be too much else to report on North Carolina going crazy. Take your shirt off and put it around your head like a helicopter. That might be it. But this is the last thing, and this is why I'm so beleaguered, y'all. This is why there is vocal fry, fatigue, whatever in my voice right now. This is why my energy went from like amber to fucking whatever that color would be. Because I watched Democracy at Work today. I've done that at a C-SPAN level before. Now I've done this now to like a state level. And I gotta say, this shit threw me. Like, everyone was talking about the whole Trump thing, and I know not many people are going to talk about this, and I get it, because at the end of the day, this is literally, even as these motherfuckers said it, it is business as usual, and that's what they wanted to get back to. They didn't want to fucking talk about a fucking issue that their people wanted to talk about and deal with and fucking fix, which in this situation is gun violence, and how do we actually deal with that? Something we've talked about on this podcast a lot, and I've just thrown my hands up in the air because I said my politicians here, there, and every fucking where won't do a goddamn thing. But in this situation in Tennessee fucking C, which is an update from, I guess we can say, from the Covenant shooting, there were 3 individuals who were trying. And they were trying to protest and be the voice of their constituents. And for that, they were expelled. At least 2 of the 3 of them were. 2 of who, I gotta say, there were 2 black men and 1 white woman. Just of me telling you this with no more context, what do you think? Which two do you think got expelled, and which one do you think made it by the skin of their teeth? The answer won't surprise you. On that note, I am going to take a break. But I gotta say, each of these 3 individuals did amazing work. Representative Justin Jones of Nashville, he was expelled by a vote of 72 to 25. Representative Gloria Johnson, representative of Knoxville, was not expelled, fell by 1, like I said. Representative Justin J. Parson of Memphis was expelled by a vote of 69. Nice, sadly. Not nice, but had to say, to 26. I gotta say, all 3 of these individuals were put through a gauntlet for what the situation that transpired. And I'll try to explain that to the best of my ability. Like I said, there's been a lot of outrage, of people upset, asking politicians, please do something, pass something that actually changes the situation for the better, please. We just want to be heard at the very least. That's why these people are clamoring outside of this government building wanting to be heard. So these three constituents, they came up and they felt like they were being silenced, and they weren't, like I said, they were not being heard. So what essentially they said, well, they were accused of storming what was called the well, and they came into the well. So the way this is kind of works, I guess I can't really describe it. Whatever, I'm in the sauce, but it's the place to speak, and you have like the microphone. You can address the speaker and everyone, and you can be heard. But essentially, they weren't allowed that, and all three of them came up, and essentially this was against the rules of the body or whatever. Also, I believe Justin Jones had a megaphone in his hand, and this megaphone in his hand might as well, because as far as these fucking Republicans were goddamn concerned, it was a gun. And they called this an insurrection moment. They literally said that this is these people are insurrectionists. And I heard this story at the top of the day, and I'm just frustrated because I'm thinking into myself, okay, Isaiah, how many times have you heard Marjorie Taylor Greene pop off and say just the most fascist shit ever? She just speed runs them, just comes up with the craziest shit to say, and the worst she gets is a censor. I remember there was the politician, we covered it, the guy who did the Attack on Titan fucking thing and said, like, this is fucking based. Whoever made this, bro, I'm sharing this, bro. He just got censored. Like, they get a slap on the wrist, and that's at the federal government level. And now we're talking about state. And you find out there are situations where some of these people who are still on in the state representative, these people have done crimes, sex crimes that they have been accused of or on trial of. Some have been proven guilty of, and they're still there. People have been accused of bribery. So we're talking about fucking corruption. And these people are allowed to sit cool, calm, collected. But because these three individuals stepped up and said something is wrong here, you need to hear the people outside. You need to understand what they're saying. They just want to be heard. We need to actually make some change here. That is essentially what they said. But they didn't like how that was said, and they didn't like the breach of protocol. And I'm telling you, these elections just went through like 2 weeks ago. And now they are being expelled. Parson, I was enthralled. I'm not going to lie to you, y'all. And I might be sounding gassed up. Might be me at my most fucking liberal. And by all means, take me out to the square and shoot me. I don't care. But it was the closest I felt to a sermon in a long time. Hearing these men fight. It wasn't even for the career at that point. They knew. Parsons knew especially because the vote was already done. And yeah, Gloria Johnson, she got off, but you heard her story. She had been a long-standing member. There's nothing wrong with her. Actually, I appreciate her. In an interview, they asked her after. They said, why do you think you got off? Like, why do you think you weren't expelled? And she said, because of the color of my skin. And she's a white woman. You know? Like, she straight up said it because she knew what was up. And people booed her. I'm like, bro. But I gotta say, I was overall with the crowd. Because, like I said, I was enthralled. This is why I'm burning late hours here. I'm probably skipping my dinner here because I couldn't look away from this shit. This man did everything right to me. Him and Jones did everything right to me. It's so frustrating to think about this shit. And I didn't get emotional about it. But, like, you think, oh, I'm going to be a person. I see a problem. I see problems. And I want to be a part of the change. So you like get active, right? You protest, you get on the streets, you do the thing. And then you take it to another level and you say, no, I'm going to put my hands in the system and I'm going to change it. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that right thing. And these guys really are trying their hardest to do that. And because of that, they're going against once again, we're talking about a super majority here in Tennessee. So they don't care. Like, oh yeah, these three kids, these three staff members, whatever, they died. That sucks. But we're gonna get, once again, I'm gonna use the phrase again, back to business. We're going to get back to business. We don't have time for this. Why are you guys talking so much about this? You do not have permission to talk about this. I heard these guys slam gavels and get mad. And for this whole interaction, they said, you're done. You lose your job. But fuck everybody else who all these other fucking criminals on the goddamn payroll. Let them slide because they're all with us. They're with the fucking team. And to hear the rebuttal because the way this all worked in this whole fucking gauntlet here, where they had to defend themselves, and then there'd be a Democrat who would like kind of speak, kind of say kind words, say, hey, what's up with all this? But essentially, these are just all the cow towers. Like, I hate to say it, none of them had anything really that real to say, besides showing more examples of how they themselves were silenced and why this situation bred itself, because democracy is not functioning in this state. And I can see that where I live. This shit is so stale, it's so boring because it's all the fucking same. But when I get on a map and I hear when it comes big election time, they talk about how we're a swing state. I'm like, that's fucking poppycock. Where I live, that's fucking bullshit. We have literally teachers with guns right now. That's just the way it is. We have no fucking rules for real. We have like we've talked about it, the whole like permitless carry bullshit. So essentially, it's like, yeah, you can just carry a gun now. You don't have to worry about it. But AKA, I hate to say it, but this is just a free pass to just kill black people. Because, cool, now you have a gun, but we're just going to assume you have a gun because we don't know. They get to say that. It's baked in now for these cops. And I'm getting on a fucking tangent here. But at the end of the day, it was beautiful to see people fighting for it, I guess. But it's frustrating. So that's why I just couldn't look away from it. I will say they get a hell of a cool pre-stump speech because they're gonna run again and they're gonna get back in. Unless these Republicans rise up and have to realize that at least their campaign dollars got to do some goddamn walking and they get a good fucking Republican candidate to fight these guys for their district because they're gonna need it. They're gonna fucking need it. She was wild to me. It was wild to me to watch these people, and it was on both sides. It was both sides. Republicans and Democrats. Just you could see that none of these people were really doing their jobs. They were just letting the wheels turn, and it was these two people. It was these two people. Because don't get me wrong. Like I said, with Johnson, Gloria Johnson, she tried. She had tried, and you could see how they had beaten her down. She had even described a situation where she's like, look, I would stand up for something, you would shout me out, or you would silence me, and then I'd wind up in a closet room for an office. They office spaced her. And she said, look, this is my moment here. I'm going to stand up with these people and these two other people. And they walked up to where you're allowed to talk. But apparently they weren't allowed to talk. It wasn't the right time. And for doing all that, they lost their jobs. At least 2 out of the 3. The darker ones. So I know that's not it's not life-shattering shit. There's all kinds of news. But my black eyes, that shit just hit me. And it made me sad. It made me angry. But it also made me happy because I know that Jones and Parsons, they're not going to stop. They're going to run this momentum. It's not over. Now, I think there's going to be some temporary thing that gets delegated by the representatives until the next election, which I think is going to be maybe in, I don't know when the next one is. Don't hold me to that. But they'll definitely get another chance to run, and we'll see how that goes from there. But some wins and some losses. Thank you so much for tuning in to this harebrained episode. If you'd like to support what I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/Isaiah News. I also what you get with the Patreon, it's not just a little tip jar. I also do bonus content. So once a week, one of my episodes is there. And then also you get a shout out once a month. There's a hot link to the Discord. Should just get you a little email, something like that. But if not, the Discord is free, actually. Just hit me up. You can find me. And I'll give it to you. I'm on Gmail, isaiahnews1 at gmail.com. So you can hit me up there. Also, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. You can comment on my Instagram photos. You can comment on the YouTube. Hopefully, you give me high ratings. Just for hopefully, interesting vibes, corked up vibes. I don't know. Please. But if not, that's cool. I really appreciate you for listening, even if you're just a clicker, and you never hear this part. You're dope to me. Also, for clickers, 30 seconds. Give me 30 seconds. Do whatever, piss off, and then that counts. I think that's a real play. But yeah, to the listeners, to the supporters, you're my faves. I love you. You're my babes. Hopefully, I see you soon for some more good news. I love you. Bye bye. Mwah.